I'm in the shop. She's in the shop playing phone games. We won't tease her about it too much. Anyway, it's this year's racing season and hot rod season is coming towards an end.
No, don't say that.
Yep, it's coming towards an end. We're not quite there yet. It's late in September. The weather's still good. Thunder Valley is still rocking, which you'll see some video of that coming up. Maybe we'll even drop a teaser of it in this video. But we did have the Chevelle out just recently where you did some pretty good stuff. You had some fun. Let's see what you can do. It's time to start thinking about the winter projects. And last winter, the main project was that pile over there on the trailer for the woman. And I think she enjoyed that, and we've abused the snot out of it this year. So we'll have a little bit of work to do on that car over the winter. But the main focus this year over the winter is going to be this pile right here behind me, Picasso as we have named it, courtesy of the multi-layers of paint, which I think after we knocked it down and I started looking, I was like, that's kind of a cool look. So we'll probably end up knocking most of the side down for all of that, and then maybe putting a little bit of clear on it and going with it. But we'll see. Aesthetics are not the main goal for the winter. The main goal is to make it a running, driving car. This is going to be built to be a drag and drive car, because that's what we enjoy doing. The other thing you may notice if you haven't seen this car before or watched any of the videos on the car, which the last time I was on the channel was like 8 months ago, was the last time I worked on this car. Back in the winter last year, we did a little bit of work on it before the major work on the Chevelle. But this is a straight axle conversion Chevy II. It is a 1963 model Chevy II, two-door hardtop, which the front clip has been completely removed and replaced by a straight axle conversion front clip. This is the Speedway package for this car, and it's a pretty nice deal. But as you can clearly see, there's still a lot left to do here. So with everything that's left to do in the front end, to get everything figured out up there, that's not the end of the package. Obviously, there's no drivetrain in there. I'll circle back to that. And then on the inside of the car, we've got plenty of work to do there as well. Currently, the interior that was in this car when I brought it home is completely stripped out. When I picked this car up and we brought this home, it was used as an 8th mile bracket race car, which is great. It's a good starting point for what we wanted to do. It does have a 5-point roll bar setup in it. There's a good chance we might be making some adjustments to that. Primarily not because it's insufficient for what I want to do with the car, but actually for it to be appropriately safe for me. As the driver of the car, the main hoop's probably going to have to come forward and be more in line with the pillar right here, because the gentleman that I got this car from was he was taller and bigger than I was, so his seat was back further, so it was in a good spot for him. But because I'm not as tall, I'm going to have my seat a little bit further forward, which puts all of that out of safety spec. I mean, it's not technically out of safety spec, because if you're just running roll bar setup to go down to 10.0, there's not really a very specific spec on the distance for helmet to roll bar and where the door bar has to be. They're not super specific or super picky at that speed. But ideally, my goal eventually with this car is to go faster than 10.0, maybe someday. If I ever get to the big boy stuff, that's the goal. Which means if I'm going to rework the car right now, I want to rework the safety stuff while the car is all stripped apart, so that eventually when we're there and we've got the powertrain for it, that the safety is appropriate. Out back, the trunk's actually in pretty good shape. This car was set up with a fuel cell in the trunk. We got, you know, trunk key here. There we go. As you can see, there's actually a couple of fuel cells in here, but this is the fuel cell that was set up in this car. This is probably a 3-gallon, which for 8th mile racing or even quarter-mile racing, a 3-gallon race fuel tank is more than sufficient. That's not going to be sufficient for a drag and drive because, well, you got to be able to do, you know, the street driving, and 3 gallons doesn't go very far. So we'll have to do something about that. That fuel cell, I believe that's just in here for storage. I think that's why I threw it in here, because that's also not a large enough fuel cell for what we're going to need to do. So it'll come out, and you can see there's a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff. There's some trim stuff in here. There's a box of paperwork, which has got a bunch of information, that a bunch of receipts and stuff, everything that was set up on the car beforehand. I don't know that there's really anything too much value for us in there, because we're basically starting over. Overall, the trunk's really not in bad shape. The trunk floor is going to need a little bit of work where the fuel cell is, which isn't a big deal. That's some easy patch-up work. And we'll probably end up going back to a factory fuel tank underneath, because, again, drag and drive, you got a lot of stuff you got to take with you. And having some trunk space to go along with your little toter trailer, it really helps. All right, let's talk about possible drivetrain options for this car. All right. There's a couple of options that I have gathered up over the last few years that could end up in this car. So the first one is actually the motor that came with the car, and it's probably the highest horsepower option out of what I have, but there are some drawbacks. This right here is a small block Chevy 400 cubic inch, factory 400 cubic inch motor. It is a 406. It's a 2-bolt main block, and it's a pretty healthy motor, pretty stout. However, 400s have a notorious history of having overheating problems, and seeing as this was built for 8th mile drag racing, it has no road time on it. So I'm a little leery, but we may give it a try, do some testing with it and find out. Another option that I have for the car that could be spiced up a little bit is over here on this engine stand right here. This is a 4-bolt main 350 stock bore. It's got 186 camel hump heads on it, and I don't know what cam's in it. We probably put a new cam in it just because I don't know what's in there. We'll put something I know what it is, make sure it's a good option for the package. But it's a decent little motor as well. It would not be running this intake. It's just on there to keep the dirt out of the motor. Possibility. And then the last option that could go in the car is right down here, all bagged up, which is a fresh 327 with all done old school. It's basically the same motor that I put in my wagon. It's an L79-ish clone motor, 186 heads, 2-bolt main 327 small journal motor, and I believe that has an 097 cam in it, which is very similar to the L79 cam as far as what it is. It's not identical, but it's decent. Again, it's not a super high horsepower motor either. It's probably about like a 300 to 325 horse package. In this car, that's enough to scoot. It'll get the down the track fun, but it isn't going to be super fast, super flashy. The 400s is probably closer to like a 400 horse, somewhere between 400 and 450 horse type motor. Makes a gobs more torque than either that 355 or 327 can dream of, which is why I'd really like to run the 400 if we can make that work. TBD. We'll see where that goes. One of those three is likely the first choice of motors that'll go in the car. If we do get a wild hair up our butt and can pull the funding together for it, I might build a new motor for it. Hiding down here underneath the shelf, that guy right there in that bag, is another 327, but it's a 327 short block with, well, I believe it's got pop-ups on it, and no cam in it right now, which gives us the option to pick whatever cam we want without having to take anything and throw anything out that's not being used. That package set up right with a good set of aftermarket heads, not stock heads, because all of both the 350 and the 327 have old school camel humps, which were great heads back in the day, but compared to modern heads, they're pretty blasé. A good Vortec head outflows either one of those heads that are over there. And the 400's got Sportsman 2 iron heads on it by World Products, which are also a really good iron head, but they have their limitations. They don't flow quite as much as a good aluminum head, not to mention aluminum heads would weigh a lot less than those iron heads. So that 327 that's under there, if we can put something together that's maybe an 11-to-1, 12-to-1 compression type motor with a good aluminum head, we could make a spicy high RPM motor, which in a gasser just fits the package really well. So I'm looking at that. That's a possibility, but we'll see. One way or another, it is going to be a small block Chevy of sorts. Behind the motor, I'm looking at the fact that it's gonna have to be a stick shift car. Now, the drawback to making this a stick shift car, which adds to a little bit of the work that we'll have to do, is if we look inside, well, let me grab a light and then we'll be able to see a little bit better. But this car was originally an automatic, I believe. Well, actually, I don't know what it was from the factory. We'll see if we can't figure that out real quick as I blast myself in the eyeballs with a light. I don't think I can even figure it out because the column's already out of the car. Okay, so if you look up under here, you'll notice that we've got a gas pedal laying down there by the floor. Move that a little bit. There we go. Gas pedal laying down there by the floor. We got a brake pedal, which is a narrow brake pedal, but we have no clutch pedal. And we also have no steering column because the factory column was removed when I pulled and swapped the front clip because the factory column was not going to work. Our replacement column stuff is right here. That has not been sorted out how it's even going to get installed in the car yet. But I believe, based on the size of the brake pedal, that this was a factory stick car. But the clutch is long gone. So we'll have to do something about a clutch pedal, and there's a couple of really trick options for that. I know American Powertrain sells it. I don't think it's made by them, but there is an all-in-one clutch pedal that's supposed to be a bolt-in fit for these. I'll have to get under there and really look at the factory brackets and see if that's all original. I think it is, but it's a bolt-in fit hydraulic clutch pedal where the clutch master cylinder is built into the clutch pedal assembly with a remote reservoir so that it all just bolts in up there into the factory stuff and gives you a hydraulic clutch pedal. And the reason we want to do that is because I'm not going to run a transmission in this car that would work with any of the factory mechanical clutch stuff, which I also don't have, which that would have been a Z-bar and a push rod and a clutch fork. I don't have any of that stuff that's appropriate for Chevy II, and Chevy IIs were unique as far as their mechanical clutch setups because on everything but a Chevy II, the clutch fork comes out at the 9 o'clock position on the bell housing. On a Chevy II, it comes out at the 7 o'clock position because of how it all has to fit. So you'd have to use Chevy II only bell housings and Z-bar stuff. It's all got to be Chevy II specific, which is, they make all of it. You can get all of it, but it's all specialty stuff that tends to cost a little bit more. And at the end of the day, I just don't think it's going to be the right way to go. I think a hydraulic clutch is going to be a much nicer way to go with it, and it allows me to run a generic scatter shield. Speaking of transmission stuff, originally was planning to put a Muncie in this car, which I have not one, but at least two around here. I think there's maybe even a third one. But this Muncie right here with the scatter shield on it, I don't even know if you can see it. There it is right down there. That's a good working M20. They're good transmissions. It came out of this car, and it may someday end up going back into that car because I've decided that a Muncie is not the right way to go. it doesn't have overdrive. Without overdrive on a drag and drive, we learned the hard way when we did Rocky Mountain Race Week with that car, that when you're driving that many miles on a race week, overdrive is a huge benefit. The amount of time, just in time, if you can safely run 65 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour without taxing your motor or overheating anything versus doing 55, 60, that 10 miles an hour when you're doing a 400 mile drive day, that's a difference of, let's see, 400 miles, it's 60 miles an hour is, hold on, we're gonna have to go to the calculator. My brain calculator is not working. Let's look at this. We'll plan it out. We'll explain why overdrive is so important. Now, in the Chevelle, we ran a 350 rear gear and a 28-inch tire, and no overdrive. It cruised the highway 60 mile an hour at 2,700 RPM, and that was really the best our cruising speed was going to be in that car, because you really pushed it much harder than that, and the motor just didn't like it. Part of that was the cooling system, which we've improved, but that's not the point. The point is, you don't want to be screaming 3,000 RPM down the highway for 4 hours. It's a little rough. So 400 miles divided by 60, you're doing over 6.5 hours to drive 400 miles. And we had multiple drives on Rocky Mountain Race Week that were anywhere from 350 to 450 miles in one day. So 6.5 hours at that speed. Now, if you can do 70 for a good part of that, 400 divided by 70, you turn that into a 5.5 hour drive. So you save an entire hour, and you're like, what's the big deal? An entire hour? Well, if you save an hour every day, that's 6 hours. 6 hours is more sleep than we got on any given night on Rocky Mountain Race Week because of the drives. So overdrive is kind of a big deal. And that's running a 350 rear gear with a 275/60 on that car. About the biggest tire you can comfortably run, and super common setup on that car. This car is going to be running probably a much more aggressive rear gear. Therefore, you would take that cruise speed. If you didn't have overdrive, your cruise speed, the more aggressive your rear gear is, the lower your cruise speed goes without overdrive. Wrap all that up. TKX. TKX is going to be the transmission solution for this car. It's a 5-speed with overdrive, and the overdrive is an 0.75 ratio, which means we can run like a 390 or a 4.0 gear in the back of this car and still be able to cruise at 65 to 75 mile an hour without screaming 3,000 plus RPM the whole time. That'll be a huge benefit if we go with the 400, because we really don't want to be screaming that 400 at 3,000 plus RPM for hours and hours and hours. It'll be guaranteed to have overheating issues. As for rear end, currently this car has a Ford 9-inch in it, and well, we'll see. This 9-inch may stay and get a few changes, or it may change altogether. The current limitation of this rear end is it's got a 430 rear gear on a spool. Like I said, 8th mile drag race, 430 rear gears, a pretty good gear for that. But we're not racing 8th mile, and 2, 430 rear gear would mean nada for cruise speed on the highway without screaming gazillions of RPM, and we don't want to do that. We just went through that. So we'll have to re-gear it. And if we're going to re-gear it, the other thing that might change at the same time is the actual shafts themselves, because this is also a 28 spline rear end setup. And if we're going to start putting money into different gear sets, and we might as well move it up to a 31 spline. And that's where I get into, well, maybe we just change the whole rear end altogether, because we're changing everything but the housing. So a new housing is not that much, and then I'll have a 9-inch to put in one of the other Novas, because we've got this one here and we've got the wagon that both have stock rear ends under them. So I think that's about going to do it. The very next project on this car is going to be the driver's seat. We're going to work on getting the driver's seat position sorted out, so that I can move from there to getting the steering column sorted out, and it'll show us what modifications and how far the roll bar system's got to move. And then we'll finally be able to finish working on the steering up front with steering column in, and make sure that all of that works appropriate before we do any final assembly up there. There are a few changes or slight adjustments that will need to be made to all the the drag links and whatnot on our steering. But until we get a driver position locked down, it's going to be hard to set any of that. As far as powertrain, don't want to do any of the powertrain in here just yet because I don't want it in the way while I'm sorting out final stuff up here. And we need to rework the brakes, the brake lines specifically, so that our fender well headers hanging right up there actually can drop through here with the way they're supposed to, which means getting those brake lines out of the way, dropping the motor in, putting the headers in, figuring out where the brake line's got to run, and then getting the motor and everything all out of the way because I want to run the hard lines everywhere with no drivetrain in the way. I learned the hard way on the wagon that the drivetrain makes it really difficult to get really good, clean hard lines in there. So while we're all in the mock-up stage, we'll go ahead and plop it in there to figure out where they're going to go and yank it out. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm looking forward to getting started on this car, having it back, and don't be disappointed. The Chevelle will see a little bit of time getting worked on this winter. There's some stuff that we got to address. We've alluded to it a few different times in the past that the motor in that car is not exactly happy. It's running pretty good, but it's got a couple of oily holes that need some attention. So there's work to be done there. And as we talked about in this video, overdrive is key for drag and drive stuff. It really does make a big difference on wear and tear, abuse of the parts, as well as the amount of time you spend on the highway. So we've got some plans for that car as far as overdrive goes that we've got to sort out. We've got a plan or an idea at least, but we'll get there. And, you know, we got to keep her working. I don't know what we're going to keep her working on, but we'll keep her working. So on that note, we'll see you guys on the next one. We'll be at Thunder Valley doing some racing with that car. She'll be doing the racing. I'll be doing the filming as always because, well, my race car is not ready to race.